We got involved with doing this new Tennessee Williams production because the Tennessee Williams Festival in Provincetown hired Larry Cohen, one of our actors, last year. Actually, he's done, I think this is his third year doing the festival. He's been down there with a couple of different productions, and last year he was down there with a Tennessee Williams world premiere called The Dog Enchanted. And we went down to see it, and we're walking down the street when Larry ran into the director of the festival, David Kaplan, and we met, and David said, "Oh, Beau Jest, I have just the play for you. I've heard about your company, and there's a play I really want you to read and see if you guys are interested in doing it." And I read it, and I was knocked out by it, so that's why we're doing it. So the name of the play is called The Remarkable Rooming House of Madame LeMonde, which I already found intriguing, and it turns out to be a very late play, one of the last plays that Tennessee Williams wrote. He published it privately. He intended to give it out to friends as a sort of a special treat and as part of an evening of Grand Guignol. He wanted to do an evening of Williams Guignol with these one acts that were never produced. It's extreme subject matter. It's extreme, it's dark, it's humorous, it's got touches of old English music hall. And Grand Guignol, there's quite a bit of violence in it at one point. And they were considered unproducible by people at the time, partly because it's the language you would not believe Tennessee Williams could write something this controversial. I think he was trying to shock to a certain extent, but at the same time, it was really, if you know Tennessee Williams' work, all of the elements are there. The sort of the young Stanley Kowalski character is there, and the domineering mother figure is there, and the sort of tender, fragile, relying on the kindness of strangeness person is there. And he was looking towards the end of his life for some kind of poetic closure. He loved Pinter, he loved Beckett, he loved some of the contemporary work that people had been doing that touched on the absurd and the existential, and I think he was looking for some kind of metaphor or image to wrap things up. And this play tells the story of a man named Mint whose legs are strangely paralyzed, who gets around the attic of Madame LeMonde's rooming house by swinging from hooks. And the whole play takes place with Mint, the character, swinging from the hooks, expecting his friend Hall to show up to have tea. And Hall is an old friend of his from Scrotum on Swansea, where they went to private school. And he hasn't seen Hall in 20 years, but you certainly get the sense he wants to see his old friend and share photographs and tea with him before something happens to him. And that's the play. And then, of course, the son and Madame LeMonde show up, and that's what happens. The last couple decades of Tennessee Williams' life were pretty rough. The 60s were kind of a haze in many ways. And the 70s, he was really trying to write another Broadway hit. He wanted to have another show to prove that since Night of the Iguana, he was still a good writer. And through thick and thin, through up and down, highs and lows and hospitalizations and drugs, he kept writing. He wrote every day. It was compulsive. It was critical for him. And even right up until the last couple months of his life, he was writing these short one-act plays. And I think when he realized commercial success wasn't going to happen again, he started writing experimental plays that out Osborne. I mean, they're really wild. And he wanted to change the forward in some of his published plays to dedicate them to Pinter. He loved Pinter. He loved Don Quixote. He loved Man of La Mancha. He'd seen a lot and was doing a lot to sort of be a part of the times, but at the same time, the critics had just written it off. They didn't want to see the new stuff. They slammed him. Kevin Kelly, I found a letter in the archives from Tennessee ranting at Kevin Kelly and Brustein for how viciously he was treated. It's almost like, when you see contemporary celebrities being taken down, there's this much glee with sort of saying they're all washed up, You read this play, if you didn't know it was by Tennessee, you'd go, wow, what is this? It's just amazing imagery, great use of language. It's powerful dramatically. It plays really well. We've had a great time working with it in rehearsal. And David Kaplan and the Provincetown Tennessee Williams Festival really want to try to show these plays in a new light, get them out there where people can see. You know, Tennessee was actually a great experimental writer. You can go way back to Camino Real. It's like, wow, what is going on? And that was in the 40s or 50s. So to try to get people to re-examine his work, see some of these plays that have never been done before, the hardest thing about this particular play about rooming house, aside from the language and the subject matter, which covers everything you can imagine, is that the main character is supposed to be swinging around from hooks. So he knew that we had a way of looking for physical solutions, and we came up with a way of doing that we were really happy with, that works well, that the actor can perform, and that gets at the heart of the play. And times have changed too. I think now culture's a little more receptive to this material. He was ahead of his time with it in many ways. So David Kaplan's trying to have a new play, a new world premiere every year. And besides just doing it in Provincetown, he very much wanted us to be able to do the world premiere the first night in Boston. So, and you and Charlestown Working Theater have been so great to work with, and we're very excited that the actual first time this play will ever be seen by anybody is here in Charlestown. And Tennessee, in a little note on the back of a piece of paper I found in an archive, said, I want these plays to be performed as part of what we'll call Williams Guignol, and I think we should find the best professional actors we can and a brave theater company willing to do this, and I would like to be personally involved in it. He was very excited about seeing this evening put together, and so I'm sorry he's not around to see it, but I'm glad there's an adventurous theater willing to produce it and actors willing to do it and interested in doing it. I think there's a lot of autobiographical points in the play that for people that have really known Tennessee Williams' work, it's really important to research and do it right and know what he was aiming for, know what influenced his thinking. That Madame LeMonde very much was probably influenced by Lady Maria St. Just, who took over the control of his estate when he died, and it has been spoken of by people who knew her as being somewhat similar to Madame LeMonde. And David wanted us to be able to do it right, respect the playwright, do the words, but also there's a sense of humor to it that Tennessee had for sure in his struggle for life that is important to capture. And so you need a group that was willing to take some wild chances physically, find the humor, and yet be true to the words, be true to what Tennessee was looking for. And I think they had a sense that Beau Jest, we've been around for a long enough time now that we as a group have kind of matured and gone into a place in our own lives where we're looking at bigger, darker issues. You know, the last show we did in Boston was The Last Resort, was looking at times changing, old institutions falling apart, where do we go from here? And we've always been attracted to that sort of question, even in something as lighthearted as Crazy Cat or in something like Motion Sickness. What are we doing with our lives? Is there any way to wrap it up? Is there any way to put a sort of a poetic fingerprint on it or a grace note before just calling it quits, you know? And so having a play like this to sink your teeth into has just been